ladies and gentlemen. Let's get edgy! Welcome to the Sub-Rogue complete preview for Legion, a spec that has been mired in controversy, which also makes it a little bit wary of the words I choose to use here as to not trigger the internets and send them all into a frenzy, but I'm sure there are people on both sides of the fence who enjoy this spec and hate this spec who would rather be championing their cause. But as always, I'll just be brutally honest in my own personal opinions, because I don't really care what you want me to say. Let's have a look at Sub. As you probably know, or maybe you don't know, I was a main Sub-Rogue throughout most of Warlords of Draenor. I got some nice 99th percentiles on some nice bosses, and had a lot of fun with it. It was easily my favourite spec. I was so happy I chose the Rogue for Warlords of Draenor and had a fantastic time with it. Is it still the same? No, it's not. A lot of stuff has changed with the Sub-Rogue, so it is very, very different, which is why it has been divisive on people's opinions. And we should always look into the subject, which I think is a subject worthy of discussion, is that as we move through the expansions, the idea is as classes grow and iterate, is that they should be iterating and developing for the better. And we should be aiming somewhat towards the perfect class, ideally, and increasing and swapping things that maybe aren't working and making them better. A lot of people who are detracting from this spec actually believe it has taken a step backwards. What's my opinion on it? I'm with them. Yeah, I prefer the old one. I do absolutely prefer the old one. Does that mean that this spec is broken and awful in many ways? No, it does not. Absolutely. Can I only see one training dummy? This server is so fucked today. Oh, there we go. No, it does not. If this spec actually came into the game as something else, let's say Survival wasn't a Hunter and had to use a lot of the Hunter aesthetics and names and stuff. If Survival launched and played as this does, I don't think anybody would have a problem with it at all and probably would prefer that. But this is a spec that has existed for a long time and was basically the go-to spec throughout Mists of Pandaria and Warlords of Draenor on several fights. And therefore, people coming to play it now who are traditional rogues are going, what have you done with my spec and why is it like this? So we'll go through this slowly and then I'll give my proper conclusion at the end. A lot of stuff you will recognize and some stuff that might have a different icon, but you will know what it is. So we have Backstabbing as Eviscerate. Rupture is gone and replaced with Nightblade. Now, a big complaint, and I am in full support of this complaint, is the shift over in theme, the class fantasy that we're all supposed to be behind in Legion because we're theatrical, is to go shadowy with it. And as an older gamer, and I am an older gamer, it just seems so fucking edgelord and Twitch chat meme, Dan's game, fucking cringe. All the words to rename stuff with really sort of over-the-top shadow names. So to give some examples, Rupture, which makes sense as a bleed, is now Nightblade. Nightblade has nothing to do with something that does shadow damage over time. Even the name doesn't seem to fit. It just seems stupid to me. But it's Rupture. But of course, multi-strike has gone in Legion. Therefore, that mechanic of Rupture advancing quicker when you multi-strike with your ambush and backstabs and stuff, that mechanic is gone. So it's just a straight up shadow damage over time, straight up dots finisher. We have another ability. Instead of Fan of Knives, we have Shuriken Storm. All right. Just a lot of the names of them just make me go, ugh, why? Anyway, it sprays the shurikens at all targets, doing Fan of Knives stuff. It does 200% damage, though, while Stealth or Shadow Dance is active. Okay, so that's another change you should be aware of. Shadow Blades. I really wish they would have fully renamed this, but of course, this is now Shadow themed, so in some ways it makes sense. But it doesn't do what it used to do. Many people remember Shadow Blades as, of course, changing your attacks to shadow damage and ignoring all armor. What it actually does now is it draws upon the surrounding shadows to empower your weapons, causing your auto attacks to deal shadow damage. Okay, just auto attacks. And abilities that generate combo points will generate one additional combo point. Yeah? So it lasts 15 seconds. So it's still a great DPS cooldown. It just, some people will get it confused, I think, and not really realize what's going on if they don't read the tooltip. On top of that, everything plays pretty much the same. Again, I'm not going for max DPS here. I'm just trying to show you some stuff. So if I get out of stealth, your general go-to will be to generate your combo points. Lovely animations, though. Apply your Rupture / Nightblade, and then go for as many Eviscerates as possible in the meantime. That's the super core basics of the spec. What the spec actually involves around for the advanced players is proper energy and combo point management. Nothing we're not used to, but it's taken to new heights here. And also making sure that you don't overflow your resources and just make sure that you actually stack a lot of things. Many people would describe the old sub as being more of a ballet. It was very sort of flowing and natural with these peaks and troughs into our shadow dance, but setting up those perfect shadow dances was a very rewarding and very satisfying experience. This is far more brutal and far more regular, and it seems that the idea at Blizzard offices is we don't like that shadow sub is less effective except for these short 1 minute windows where they go absolutely berserk. It's difficult to balance. It makes sub-rogues very highly sought after for specific encounters, which we've seen several times in the past, but makes them less effective in different encounters for their playstyle. I disagree with that. I think it was fine, but I can kind of see where they're coming from. So one of the big changes they've made, of course, is you can probably see a big 3 over my shadow dance here, is the charge system. And again, I've said this so many times, it's prevalent throughout most of the classes in Legion now, is this charge system. It is how they're trying to keep people on this sort of smooth level DPS playfield instead of going, whoa, all the time. So, how does Shadow Dance work then? It does what Shadow Dance usually does, which is give you all the benefits of being a stealth and the abilities that you can use in stealth, but it only lasts for 3 seconds now, okay? It also gives you a 50% damage buff while you're under the effects of Shadow Dance. So it has this 1 minute recharge system, which means you can back-to-back them, you can spread them out, you can do whatever the hell you want to do, but that's how Shadow Dance works now. There's no bar, you just press Shadow Dance, you go edgy purple. And you can see it wears out very, very quickly. So instead of setting up for big shadow dances, what you're doing now is setting up for very short, bursty shadow dances where you get this 50% extra damage and you're trying to put as much damage into that little window as possible. The extra ability we get is called Shadow Strike. Shadow Strike is basically backstab. And yeah, it feels like they're trying to trick people up here, or maybe they're trying to make it, I don't know, interesting. There is an interesting element of Shadow Strike, is that it's got a 25-yard range. It has a Shadow Step component. Whee! So you can Shadow Strike, and then you can Shadow Step, which is a baseline ability, and you can vanish Shadow Strike. Whee! You can do all sorts of cool things. Mobility is not a problem for sub. Let's put it that way. So what does Shadow Strike do? It costs 40 energy, and it stabs things, and it gives you a combo point. Yeah, but it also teleports you to the target as well. Backstab is 35 energy, but does way less damage. But no, backstab does 30% extra damage when you are behind the target. They're still sticking with that mechanic. I get it, it kind of fits the theme, and they've had to put a talent in to counter that instead of just getting rid of it like they did with the Ferals. Our other extra ability is the Gormar's Bite. Does 50,000 damage, nothing special, and grants 30 energy over 6 seconds and gives 3 combo points, yeah? So you pair that up with something like Shadow Blade to get the additional combo points, you get 4, you get straight up there, you can do all sorts of cool things. It's quite nice, it's something you want to fit in. It does do the most damage. 47, I'm right on that, it's close, I know. Oh, it's 41, it's actually less than the Shadow Strike, but you still get the 3 combo points and stuff, blah, 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 blah. Okay, then. So, what's the extra Edgelord ability we have? Symbols of Death. Really? I'm going to have to read this tooltip to you, and I don't want to, Blizzard. I don't want to read it. You invoke the ancient symbols of power. I feel like Pinhead's going to crawl out of my arse at any moment. Increasing all damage you deal by 20%. The saddest thing about Symbols of Death is that it's the most boring fucking ability of all time. Oh my god. 20% damage buff? Fuck off, man. And causing your next Shadow Strike to crit. Woo. Woo. Now, initially when I saw this ability, I macroed it into Shadow Strike, but after playing a 110, and some people keep asking me, will you please show us the 110 characters? No. No, these guys give me their account for a long, long time, and there are people on the internet who are dickheads and will just start reporting them and spamming them. So, no, not doing that. As you can see, I haven't played my rogue a lot, because I'm not a big fan of the rogue in Legion, if I'm being honest. So 110s with artifact powers are what I prefer to play rather than leveling my own and doing it all again. I don't really want to do that. I'll just jump to the end if that's alright with you. So you get this 35-second buff with a 10-second cooldown. I imagine a lot of people will just macro it to Shadow Strike, but obviously the advanced players won't be doing that, but that's entirely up to you. Just bear in mind this Edgelord ability that requires stealth. So you can do things like, if you're setting up for a 3-burst Shadow Dance, which a lot of us will know when to do that, you could also do things like a Vanish, Symbol of Death. You can do things like that if you really want to, just to keep the buff up. But if you do macro it, what I will say is when I first did this, like, I did like 3/4 of a level as it. If you do macro it, you never worry about it, because you just always have it up all the time. It's just a shame that it's so fucking boring. Holy crap, is it boring. Some cool things now. When you're AoEing, your AoE is still pretty much the same. Your Shuriken Storm will just give you a combo point for every target it hits. And then you will just be spamming your finishes on there. Yeah, so you can put some Night Blades up. Love the animations, though. We've got to be fair. The animations are very, very cool. You will just be putting your Ruptures up. I'm going to call it Rupture for the remainder, because that's what it is. Rupture, or you can do some Eviscerates if you want to. We have no Crimson Tempest. That's gone. I'm surprised it's not the, what, Shadowy Cyclone. That's some shit. I know, it's got to be edgier than that. The shiny, sharp Razor's Shadow Storm Blade. Some shit like that. Though it would probably make a lot of sense. Cloak of Shadow seems to fit more readily, though, so we've got to appreciate that for a burn. That's the general crux of how you play. The big idea with this, if you want to get good at it, and there is a lot of ways you can get good at this, and we'll explore a little bit more of them in the talents, is getting all of these Shadow Dances to be absolutely creamy. They're just going to be much smaller and much more frequent than they are previously, okay? Not that big of a deal, which is why this spec isn't a total disaster. It's not. It's not a total disaster. It's actually fine. Let's look at the talents then, so you can pad it out a little bit then. You get Master of Sub, which is attacks made while stealth and for 6 seconds after. Breaking stealth causes an additional 10% damage. Okay, so we can get that burst in there. Weapon Master, where you'll 12% chance to hit the target twice, each time they deal damage. That's all your abilities, by the way. Glue Blade. So Glue Blade exists really because Backstab has that damage bonus component I told you about earlier. And Glue Blade exists so you can just attack from the front without being suffering or anything like that. I need to point out a couple of things to you here, otherwise the spec won't make much sense. So they got rid of things like Honor Among Thieves and of course the multi-strike Rupture and all that kind of stuff. What they've replaced it with is Deepening Shadows. Previously, Shadow Dance charges could actually randomly reset, which is a real pain in the ass for anybody who's ever dealt with that kind of system. The BM Hunters are currently living with that nightmare right now. And that meant that you had to dump it. You had to dump them because you might get a lot of resets back to back, and that just doesn't allow you to plan. And this spec is decidedly methodical in its approach. So Deepening Shadows actually means that your finishes, they've basically borrowed from combat here in a very weakened sense. You'll get 3-second reduction in the cooldown of Shadow Dance, for every combo point spent, so 15 seconds per 5 combo points, or if you have Deeper Stratagem or something, it'll be the extra 3. You also get Relentless Strikes, your finishing moves have a 20% chance per combo point to generate energy, okay? And Shadow Techniques, your auto attacks have a chance to generate a combo point, okay? So that's where your extra combo points are coming from, is just via auto attacks, so nothing you have to worry about, you'll just naturally get them. If I just run over here, I'll probably proc one quite quickly. There you go, you can see I get one there. But it's relatively predictable. This entire spec is very clean cut, very surgical in its nature. So, moving down then, Night Stalker gives you a 15% damage bonus from Stealth and Shadow Dance. Very cool, and plus you get the movement speed. Subterfuge, your ability to require stealth, can be used for 3 seconds after stealth breaks. Also increases the duration of Shadow Dance by 2 seconds. You're starting to see very much a lot of familiarity with the WOD sub-rogue. It's just in a very much more frequent usage, okay? And Shadow Focus is still the same as well. Deeper Stratagem exists for 6 combo points, and your finishing moves deal 12% increased damage. A lot of damage stacking. You're starting to see that. You could stack some big burst if that's the way you want to go. Anticipation. If you're doing a lot of AoE, and I'm talking like 5 mobs plus or even 4 mobs plus, Anticipation really feels like a must-have for me, because as I just explained, your finishes reduce your Shadow Dance cooldown. Shadow Dance increases the damage of your Shuriken Storm by 200%. And if you've got like 4 plus mobs, plus the new hat, you're getting 5 combo points pretty much every single time you do this, right? You'll be going, 5, something old sub-rogues will be used to. But this means you can basically keep up a permanent Shadow Dance, yeah? You can keep up a permanent Shadow Dance in those scenarios. And Anticipation allows you to do that a little bit easier. Vigor, of course, early days always tends to pull ahead because you need the extra energy regen while your gear's fucking shit. Increase your maximum energy by 50 and your energy regen by 10%, which is what we're really after. At level 60, you get your Soothing Darkness, which is heal, and these are the usual PvE defensives. Strike from the Shadows, Prayer of the Weak, tackles Shadows, the usual CC stuff we pick up, nothing DPS effective there. Level 90 then, Pre-Med shows its face, but it's now Cheap Shot and Shadow Strike generate an additional combo point. Not terrible, because we'll be Shadow Striking a lot. It's obviously the go-to ability while you're Shadow Dancing, and you'll be Shadow Dancing a hell of a lot now. Alacrity, though, is fucking so good. I actually don't like it because it's boring, but it's just so fucking good. Your finishing moves have a 20% chance per combo point to grant 1% haste for 20 seconds, stacking 25 times. In early gear, good god, this is amazing. It's just so useful, which kind of annoys me because I want to try other stuff. Enveloping Shadows is just way less interesting comparatively. It's another finisher you can add, because as you can see, we only have Eviscerate and the Nightblade. slash Rupture. I'm going to call it Rupture for the sake of familiarity. Nightblade and Rupture, but if you're going to add in Enveloping Shadows, you can obviously Slice and Dice is gone, which is no sadness for anybody. But what it does is it generates an extra combo point. I will say this feels kind of weak sauce because we don't lack combo points, but also bear in mind those extra combo points from this one finisher leading to more finishers, which leads to more Shadow Dances and so on and so forth. You get the idea as they're moving through the talent tree here. At level 100 then, Master of Shadows, you immediately gain 30 energy. This is boring because energy pooling is something any good rogue should be able to do, but as you also know, if you played sub for any period of time, or a rogue in general, energy at the beginning game, similar with Vigor, is kind of weak sauce, so this helps that be much more flowing. You're going to be Shadow Dancing a hell of a lot, as I already explained, therefore getting that 30 energy is pretty good as well. Mark for Death. I love Mark for Death. Mark for Death is very unappreciated talent by a lot of people because it involves using it properly. Generally involves a lot of mouse over macros and stuff. People get stuck with it with managing all the resets as well as everything else, but it doesn't seem to fit in with sub. It doesn't seem to fit there. I will be interested. I've tried it a little bit, but I've not been in a scenario where I've been able to do Mark for Death a lot to get shitloads of Shadow Dances, because in that scenario where I would get the benefit of that, I'm also AoEing a lot and just don't need the extra combo points, which is always the problem with it. It's not like old combat where you could get loads and loads of finishes within a deep insight or anything like that. So it doesn't seem to fit for me, but it's still a great talent and it still works wonderfully. And it does have tie-ins to Shadow Dance in terms of resetting the cooldown. Death from Above, again, is an odd one out. It's just so fucking expensive for sub. It really is. So expensive to get the best use of it with a 20-second cooldown, and you feel like it's really drawing your soul out trying to get it to do that. Death from Above could easily be replaced with something else of interest that suits the shadow theme that they're going for. As much as I say I don't like the shadowy edgelord type theme, that is the theme they're going for. So in that respect, I had to say Death from Above doesn't seem to fit. That would fit a more brutal bleed style, but not Death from Above. But frankly, it's just so expensive to keep it on cooldown every 20 seconds and do all the other shit that's just more important. The fun stuff with sub is doing good Shadow Dances. And then everything else revolves around that. It doesn't need fancy finishes that are really expensive and kind of diminish that ability whatsoever. So that's how it plays, okay? You can pick this up. If you've played a WOD sub-rogue or a MOP sub-rogue, you'll be fine with this. You'll be absolutely fine. There is plenty of nuance. If you're worried that the sub-rogue was now easy mode for kiddies, it's not. There's lots and lots of little details and proper energy management and all the stuff that makes being a good rogue good still exists here. And I do not agree with the guys saying this is just a shit spec now. It is not. It's different for sure, and some of us will absolutely prefer the old one, but I think you need to give it a fair shot. It's a little clunky, to say the least. It doesn't have that grace and ballet dancing feel that we had with the old one. No, it doesn't. I totally agree with that, but that doesn't mean it's a bad spec. It's just different, in my opinion. I do prefer the old one, not gonna lie, but once you get into it, when you get the artifact abilities, it's a great light show. The artifact's not the best, but it is an interesting light show. So what we have is Fortune's Bite is one I want you to be aware of. You can see I went for this first for leveling and stuff, which is Shadow Techniques at 10% chance to generate 2 combo points. Again, that combo point energy management. But the golden ones then. Akari Soul. After you use Cheap Shot or Shadow Strike, Akari Soul appears 4 seconds later and rips the target. Now, we're going to be doing lots of Shadow Strikes. With certain talent setups, you're getting like 6 out. Usually you're getting like 3 out. And these are all going to go boom, boom, boom. It looks fantastic. Shadow Nova, when you exit stealth, you explode. Again, cool little light show. And Finality, after using Nightblade or Eviscerate or Rupture or Eviscerate for the old school, your next use of that finishing move is empowered by the Fangs of the Devourer. Again, giving you more bonus damage. Nothing that really affects your gameplay too much, even if I move through the other ones. But stuff that looks cool nonetheless. And at this point, we fully accept that the artifact weapons, for the most part, aren't granting anything of major interest unless you're a particularly lucky class. My conclusion here then is, on a personal level, is I am not a big fan of it. I prefer the old style, but I could absolutely play it and be okay with it. It still has the things that I really enjoyed. It just has them in a slightly diminished form and reworked into a different way. But this spec is not garbage. It's not garbage at all. It just doesn't excite me as it once did. Pulling off really beautiful, crispy Shadow Dances is nowhere near as satisfying now as when I did it on my old sub-rogue. Because there's lots more elements going on there, right? There's loads more elements going on there that just don't exist now in the Legion world. Alright guys, thank you so much for paying attention. Thank you so much for listening. I love you all. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.